Baby, Julie, Julie Baby. Agora quero ver as crianças dançando Julie Baby, Julie Baby. Não, Julie, Julie Baby, Julie, Julie Baby. Agora quero ver as crianças dançando Julie Baby, Julie Baby. Não dá, não dá, não dá.
Meu nome é Maristella.
My name is Maristely and I'm 18 years old. This is the favela I live in, Nova Divinéia.
Maristely embodies the potential of the young people growing up in Brazil. She was raised in a favela in the heart of Sao Paulo, and despite many challenges, she has become a role model and leader for justice in her community.
I would like to study social services because I could help people by not only giving them assistance, but I would also like to give them the means to help them construct their lives.
Favelas are slums or shantytowns, makeshift houses built on lands that is prone to floods and landslides. They are often constructed on land near or around busy roads and train lines. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, there are over 1.6 million people living in favelas. Basic amenities such as water and electricity are hard to obtain. Employment is scarce and crime is high. This means that for favela residents, home is not always a safe or secure place to be. CAFOD, the Catholic Agency for Overseas Development, has been working for over 50 years alongside women, men and children who are most vulnerable to extreme poverty and injustice. Following the example of Christ in the Gospel, these are the people we are called to stand together with, to build a more just and fair world, a world in balance, at peace and free of poverty. CAFOD has been working in partnership in Brazil since 1968. It's fair to say that most of us might think that as a country, Brazil is doing okay. It has the 6th largest economy in the world and is on target to meet all of the Millennium Development Goals. But besides economic growth, improved infrastructure, access to health and education services, there is a widening gap between the rich and the poor. Millions of people are being left behind. CAFOD's partner in Sao Paulo, the Movement for the Defence of Favela Residents, or MDF, works with the poorest people across 40 of the favelas in the sprawling city. By advocating for change, running a cultural centre and providing a youth empowerment programme, they are currently improving the lives and living conditions of 4,000 families, including Maristely's. Today, Maristely is a key young leader and an advocate for the well-being and potential of her community.
The role of MDF is to work with families, so they are aware that they can advocate for improvements where they live.
It is important for the families to see that if we sit down and talk about our issues, we are all going through the same difficulties, and if we all get together, we can come up with a solution.
Just like Maristely, Andre grew up in a favela. He is now studying law, yet continues to live in a favela with his wife and son. He works at MDF as an educator. One of his key responsibilities is to gain consensus of the community's needs through house surveys and community meetings.
We visit the families to talk about the situations in the favela. In each favela, there are different issues.
In the community meetings, we talk about urbanization, possession of property, water, electricity, sewage, and also families being evicted from their homes.
Since MDF began back in the 70s, it has extended its programme from working with just 3 favelas to 40 and has successfully facilitated the process of contacting and working with local authority, government and enterprise to improve living conditions for thousands of families. Brazil has the highest level of urbanisation in the world, with over 20 million people migrating from rural areas to cities since the 1950s. With such a high influx of people, many families ended up having to build makeshift houses on land they didn't own.
At the beginning, the favela houses were made from cardboard. Most of the favelas didn't have electricity or running water, and human waste used to run down the streets. First, we got the authorities to put pavement on the streets, and then they sorted out the sewage, water, and electricity. If it wasn't for MDF, we wouldn't have the benefits we have today.
Because the majority of favela residents are landless and titleless, they struggle to fully participate in society. They have limited access to social services, are discriminated against, and can be evicted at any time en masse. With the 2014 World Cup, tens of thousands of families have been evicted or could face eviction in Sao Paulo alone. The Catholic Church has played an integral role in standing with the millions of Brazilians who have been left behind, especially the landless. Thanks to a sustained campaign by MDF, progress is being made, with many families, such as Maristely's, securing the certificate of ownership for their property. This means Maristely and her family can no longer be evicted and lose their home.
For the people who live in favelas, we always suffer some sort of discrimination. People assume we're dirty, uneducated, and rude. Especially adults find it extremely difficult to get a job because it's assumed that people from the favelas come from a gang or are dishonest, and that they are going to steal money.
We are socially excluded. When we get out of the favela and people ask us, "Where do you live?" and we say, "In the favela," people look down on us. People make assumptions.
This constant prejudice takes its toll. It manifests through shame, hopelessness, low self-esteem, and anger. Up to 70% of families experience violence at home, and there is a dominant gang culture. This is exacerbated by violence from authorities and officials against those living in the favelas.
When I was younger, we could hardly leave the house because as soon as you walked out of the door, you saw a lot of young people using drugs. I ended up understanding better the side of violence, and here in this community, there was a lot of it, especially against women and young people.
The young people are most vulnerable because they're exposed to negative things here, more than if they lived elsewhere. So it's easy for them to follow the wrong way rather than the right way to live.
Getulio is a youth empowerment coordinator at MDF. He plays an integral role in breaking the cycle of violence and low self-esteem that affects so many.
For us in the movement, it's a lot easier to work at a preventative level, to help the young people avoid and prevent them from entering the drug trafficking life, rather than getting them out of their life once they have started it.
MDF has helped set up a cultural centre and youth empowerment programme to give children and teenagers an alternative to life in the gangs by building self-esteem and challenging prejudice, as well as creative outlets designed to allow young people to express themselves. There are regular workshops on relevant issues, from violence against women, conflict resolution and advocacy. There is training on how to write blogs, use social media and filmmaking. The messages they discuss focus on challenging people's negative views about the favelas and building a stronger sense of community.
The favela is not only a problem, but it can also be a solution for the housing issue. We sometimes focus a lot more on the negative than the positive. For instance, Maristely is a great thing that came up from the favela. So let's focus on these positive things. How can a place where I raised my children, where I grew up, where I played as a child, despite all the violence and all the problems, how can this place be so bad?
With your support for CAFOD, young people like Maristely are able to become leaders for justice in their communities. By advocating for not only improved living conditions, but also challenging external discrimination and prejudice, they are instigating change, shaping society. They are also demonstrating to others that a different way of life is possible. As a result, people living in the favelas have hope for a more secure home and a future, enabling them to have life to the full.
I would like to thank everyone for their support. Even though you're so far away, you believe in us. We can only change things through your will to help. You make us a lot stronger to change our reality here, so I would like to thank everyone for this.
Being a part of MDF has given me a lot of good things, like awareness of my dignity as a person and critical thinking. What I think is that, yes, I live in a favela, but because of my perseverance, I live in a better place and we are recognized for that.
We are inspired by young people like Maristely. Join her, working for justice in your community and around the world.
Shh.